Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Dean McPherson, Ms. Natal, MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Martin Mayer, Deputy Director General responsible for expanded public works, Ms. Carmen Joy Abrams, government officials, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, I would like to welcome you to this briefing on the status of the expanded public works program in the Ethekwini Metropolitan Municipality. Thank you all for joining us here this afternoon. The expanded public works program remains a critical intervention by the government to provide work opportunities, support livelihoods, and bring dignity to communities across South Africa. Today's briefing forms part of ensuring transparency and clarity on its implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to briefly outline the proceedings for this afternoon. We will begin with remarks by the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Dean McPherson. He will be followed by the President-Natal MEC for Public Works, Mr. Martin Mayer, and thereafter it will be the Deputy Director General responsible for EPWP, Ms. Carmen Joy Abrams. Following these remarks, there will be a round of question and answers. Just to note that we are not doing any one-on-one interviews thereafter, so if you have any questions, you need to ask them during the answer and question session. With that, and without any further delay, Minister, over to you.
Thank you very much, James. Good afternoon to the MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Martin Mayer, as well as our Deputy Director General responsible for the Expanded Public Works Program, Ms. CJ Abrahams, as well as other officials, members of the media, and the public who will be watching this. Thank you all for joining us here this afternoon. We're here because the matter before us, which we will discuss, is very serious. It is very serious because it not only concerns public money, but it is serious because it concerns a program that is meant to support the poor and unemployed South Africans through work opportunities created across government programs, including the Expanded Public Works Program here in Ethekwini. EPWP is not funded by a single source, but through a framework that is applied across government programs, where work opportunities are created using a combination of existing budgets, including municipal funds, infrastructure grants, and EPWP incentives. It is meant to be a poverty alleviation program. It is meant to give people hope in communities where opportunities are scarce, where households are under pressure, and where even short-term work opportunities can mean the difference between survival and despair. For many people, EPWP is the difference between food on their table or not at all. It is the difference between a household making it through the month or not. This is why any abuse of this program is so deeply offensive to the people of this country, but particularly myself as the Minister. Because when EPWP is abused, it's not only taxpayers who are being robbed, but it is the poorest South Africans who are being robbed. It is the unemployed person who should have received an opportunity but did not. It is the struggling family that is denied support because someone manipulated the system for personal or political benefit. And that is why we are here today. On the 8th of April 2026, I formally received correspondence from the Auditor General of South Africa regarding a material irregularity identified in the Ethekwini Municipality's administration of the EPWP grant dating back to 2021-2022. The irregularity relates to payments made for services not rendered in contravention of Section 65(2)A of the Municipal Finance Management Act. This means that the municipality was unable to provide verifiable records, including attendance registers and supporting documentation, to demonstrate that work was actually performed by the individuals who were paid. The Auditor General's findings indicate that the municipality's database included ghost beneficiaries, deceased beneficiaries, beneficiaries employed elsewhere in government, and beneficiaries with no valid identity numbers. It is important to clarify the institutional roles within the Expanded Public Works Program. While departments, including Public Works, may implement EPWP projects as public bodies, the EPWP branch functions as the national coordinating unit. It does not implement projects, appoint beneficiaries, or make payments. These responsibilities rest with each implementing public body, including municipalities, in relation to their own projects. It must be noted that the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, as the national coordinator of EPWP, applies data validation controls at the point of reporting to identify any anomalies. However, responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, and verification of beneficiary data rests with the implementing public body. Let us be clear about what this means. It means a program intended to support vulnerable people appears to have been used to channel public money to people who should never have been paid in the first place. This tarnishes the name of EPWP. It means there has been a failure of basic controls. It means that there is a breakdown in those controls and oversight at the implementing level. And it means that funds intended for legitimate beneficiaries may have been diverted away from the very people EPWP is meant to serve. What makes this even more serious is that these concerns are not new. According to the Auditor General, this material irregularity was identified during the 2021-2022 audit cycle. The municipality was notified, recommendations were made, and opportunities were provided for corrective action. Yet the Auditor General has concluded that the recommendations were not adequately implemented within the stipulated period, and that appropriate action was not taken to address the material irregularity. The situation was entirely avoidable. Had the municipality implemented the remedial actions required by the Auditor General when these findings were first raised, and there had been properly functioning EPWP office within the necessary controls and oversight in place, we would not be here today. Instead, what we are dealing with now is the consequence of inaction, weak administration, and a failure to take seriously the responsibility of safeguarding public funds. In other words, this is not a case where the municipality was unaware. This is not a case where the problem appeared yesterday, and this is not a case where serious concerns were raised but not properly dealt with over a prolonged period of time. And when repeated warnings are ignored, accountability can no longer be an option or be delayed. As the custodians of the EPWP program at a national level, we have a duty to protect the integrity of the program and to safeguard public funds. It is also important to acknowledge that over the past 3 years, communication between the department and the municipality on EPWP matters has deteriorated significantly. We have experienced ongoing challenges in establishing consistent, effective communication, which has made it increasingly difficult to resolve issues proactively and ensure proper oversight. This breakdown in coordination has further contributed to the situation we are confronting today. We do not have the luxury of simply looking away, and we do not have the luxury of simply doing nothing. And we certainly should not continue transferring funds as though nothing is wrong. That is why I've directed the department to withhold EPWP transfers to the Ethekwini Metro Municipality in the new 2026-2027 financial year until the necessary corrective action has been taken by the municipality and the department is satisfied that public funds will be protected and that the council implements urgent action to protect the program and hold those officials responsible for non-compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, this decision was not taken lightly, but it is a necessary decision. It is necessary because the law requires accountability when public funds are placed at risk. The municipality, in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act and the EPWP regulatory framework, is solely responsible for its expenditure controls, payroll systems, beneficiary management, record keeping, and consequence management. The department does not have direct access to or control over municipal payroll systems or payment processes. The Auditor General, in terms of the Public Audit Act and the material irregularity process, has already escalated this matter because the municipality failed to adequately act on prior recommendations. And the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, as the national department responsible for the EPWP and its grant framework, must now act to ensure that further funds are not exposed to abuse. Where material irregularities are identified, the national department cannot correct the underlying transactions, but it is obliged to act to prevent further exposure of public funds. So when we say we are suspending transfers, we are not acting outside the law. We are acting because the law, the evidence, and our duty to the public leave us with no other responsible or reasonable choice. Let me also be clear about what must now happen. The Ethekwini Metro Municipality must, within 30 days, ensure that a council resolution is passed to deal comprehensively with this matter. Why is a council resolution required? Because this cannot be handled as an informal administrative exercise. It cannot be reduced to promises made in meetings or vague assurance from officials. A council resolution is required because the allegations go to the heart of municipal governance, financial oversight, and institutional accountability. It is the mechanism through which the municipality must formally bind itself to a clear course of action. It is the mechanism that ensures this matter is not treated as the responsibility of one official alone, but as a matter requiring the full authority and oversight of the council and councillors. And it is the mechanism that creates an official, reviewable, and enforceable basis for remedial action, monitoring, and consequence management. That resolution must endorse at the minimum 3 things. First, it must endorse a full investigation into the allegations and findings identified by the Auditor General. Second, it must endorse a detailed remedial action plan with clear timeframes, responsibilities, and reporting lines to address the failures that allowed these irregularities to occur. And third, it must support the institution of disciplinary and, where appropriate, criminal action against any officials or individuals found to be responsible. This is not optional, ladies and gentlemen. It is required, and if there is to be any prospect of restoring the integrity of the program in Ethekwini. The municipality must quantify its loss, it must determine who benefited improperly, and it must take all reasonable steps to recover funds improperly paid in line with applicable financial misconduct and recovery processes. It must institute disciplinary action where wrongdoing is identified, and where criminal conduct is suspected, cases must be opened with law enforcement authorities. This is the minimum that we require from the municipality as a way to show us that they are serious about protecting public funds and the EPWP program so that we are comfortable to restore funding. Anything less would amount to tolerating the abuse of one of South Africa's most important poverty alleviation programs. I also want to say this. What has happened in Ethekwini reinforces exactly why we have embarked on the broader reform of the EPWP program. For too long, weaknesses in administration and implementing public bodies, opaque recruitment processes, and weak verification systems have left the program vulnerable to manipulation, and this must end. We are working to modernize the program through stronger digital systems, better verification processes, and real-time oversight tools that reduce the space for abuse by corrupt officials. The EPWP program must work for the unemployed person standing in line for an honest opportunity. It must not work for those who are politically connected, and it must not work for ghost names on a spreadsheet. And it must certainly not work for those who see public employment programs as vehicles for patronage and theft. The people of South Africa deserve better, and the people of Ethekwini absolutely deserve better. And the many honest EPWP participants across this country also deserve better. Because let us remember this, the existence of abuse in one municipality does not erase the importance of the program itself. EPWP remains a vital tool, and it remains necessary. And when administered properly, it can provide meaningful work opportunities, valuable skills, and real support to struggling communities. Our responsibility, therefore, is not to abandon the program, but it is to restore its credibility and make it better than it's ever been. Our responsibility is to ensure that every rand meant for the poor reaches them. And our responsibility is to make sure that those who abuse the program face the consequences. That is the standard we are setting. That is why we are acting today, and that is why we will not allow this matter to be buried, delayed, or explained away. In closing, let me say this. This decision is a painful decision, but it is a necessary one for the people of Ethekwini and the municipality itself. It's about whether government is willing to defend the integrity of its programs meant for the most vulnerable, and it's about whether we are serious about clean governance. And it's also about whether we're prepared to act when abuse is uncovered and brought to our attention. I want to let you know I certainly am willing to do all of that. And this department is willing to do it too. And we will continue to do everything that is necessary to protect EPWP, protect public money, and protect the interests of those people that this program is meant to serve. If similar abuse of EPWP is identified in any public body, I will act accordingly, and my record speaks to having acted accordingly in places like Machapeng and in Mpumalanga. The EPWP, as I said, is too important to be captured by corruption. It's too important to be weakened by poor controls. It is too important to fail the people who depend on it. And that is why we will act without fear or favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister. We're now going to hand over to the Commissioner for Public Works, Mr. Martin.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister, officials, and members of the media. For KZN Public Works Infrastructure, the expanded Public Works program is something we take seriously, and it's one of the offerings where we play a part in ensuring that communities we serve are uplifted and that individuals are afforded a chance to become meaningful contributors to society in our province. As a department, we recently undertook to go across the province to engage with communities directly through our Citizens Engagement Roadshow, and EPWP consistently emerged as the #1 concern in every community that we visited. Some complaints we experienced included participants being made to prove what party they aligned to before being given EPWP opportunities. Others were asked to pay for those jobs. Jobs were given to people who have relationship with officials, and most shockingly was the ongoing scandal of sex for jobs that we still find in EPWP. That is based on this, and it's because of these complaints that a month ago we launched our EPWP anti-fraud and whistleblower portal that is to be found on our webpage at kznworks.gov.za. And in the first month we've received 18 credible and actionable complaints on this complaints line. These include a lack of transparency in recruitment processes, alleged political interference in recruitment, and operational challenges with certain municipalities that led to 2 months delays in payments. The fact is this. EPWP is more than just a quick fix to a long-standing problem of unemployment, upskilling and empowerment. However, it is well known that the program is plagued with serious ongoing challenges, and some of them we have heard here with Minister today. From our side as KZN Public Works and Infrastructure, we have continued to meet with the Ethekwini Municipality and try to meet them halfway in ensuring that the EPWP offering remains relevant. As per official minutes, a brief timeline of our interventions with Ethekwini include discussions held in June 2024 on performance and reporting with the municipal manager that affect the implementation of the EPWP program at Ethekwini Municipality, and we offered possible solutions. Another intervention was held on June 2025 to identify and understand blockages to implementation and developing innovative methodologies for resolving them. The uploading of participants' information into the EPWP reporting system between February and March 2026, and meeting with the Simbambele program coordinator to fast-track reporting in March 2026. These interventions with Ethekwini remain ongoing. It is also worth noting that our records show that over the past few years, there has been a consistent decline in Ethekwini's performance regarding EPWP, especially from a height of 19,679 people employed in the EPWP program in 2022-2023 financial year to just 8,241 employed in this last financial year. And that's an extremely serious decline. And a lot of that is due to a lack of reporting from the municipality. Over the past years, it should be noted that Ethekwini Metro has consistently achieved its annual targets. However, due to non-compliance, particularly the timely submission of IYM reports, which are due on the 10th of each month, this have posed difficulties for the municipality in adhering to deadlines. This has contributed significantly to the decline in the grant allocation to the municipality. Therefore, as a turnaround intervention, we at KZN Public Works Infrustructure have decided that we will be revisiting certain aspects of the EPWP program. These include the following: reassessing and reflecting on any possible shortcomings from our side as a department, as the observer, identifying what mistakes were allowed to occur that caused the crack to widen within the system, to see how best we can depoliticize EPWP, and I know this is something that Minister is also quite passionate about, strengthen the relationship with the relevant municipalities, and to see how best to protect qualifying and legitimate beneficiaries with regard to any interventions implemented going forward. However, I am happy to say that KZN Public Works Infrustructure, we have had some promising developments where we are constantly looking to improve the EPWP offering. Some of these include that our current consideration to strengthen the offering, such as involving partnerships with entities as CETA and our TVET colleges. We are reporting quarterly on EPWP developments and grievances. We are looking to see how we can expand on the promising targets achieved. Our target for this year was 135,238, but as a department we've achieved 155,256. So we exceeded our target in the province of 20,000. And we exceed involvement of marginalized group like women in EPWP. We've achieved a 70% inclusion rate above the 60% target set to us. This is also why the National Department has chosen KZN to launch the brand new and improved EPWP, and we'll be welcoming that launch very soon, and we're looking forward to it. And it also shows the good work and the hard work we've done in EPWP in the province. And I've had a look at the changes and the reforms that's going to be there, and I think there's exciting times lay ahead for us in EPWP. In conclusion, I want to say that it's important to highlight, because residents must understand that our fight is not against EPWP. In fact, as a department, we fully support what it stands for and what it tries to achieve. But our issue is when such a model meant to help desperate people is exploited through corruption to benefit those who put their own selfish agenda before anything else, we are forced to act. We want the reputation of the EPWP program to be dignified and seen for the good it aims to achieve. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks so much, MEC. We're now going to hand over to the Deputy Director responsible for expanded public works, Ms. Coleman Joy.
Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, MEC, and good afternoon to the media and to all colleagues that may be in the room. Minister, we acknowledge and MEC the communication of the Auditor General. Indeed, it is serious in relation to the communication because it is a material irregularity. And that is something as an official that one definitely wants to avoid at all costs. We recognize that this was avoidable, and this speaks to systemic issues that are at play within the municipality. And the measures that have been announced through our minister is definitely seen therefore as a last resort. And it is important that we recognize that Ethekwini is not being isolated. This is the approach that we will be taking towards all municipalities that have undertaken practices that are not in accordance with the PFMA or the MFMA. And so it is important that we take the matter very seriously and consider the fact that this is funds, public funds that must be used appropriately in order to ensure service delivery and also the provision of goods and services. Now, I think it is important to recognize that we will continue to work with the municipality because this matter can be corrected. It requires commitment from the municipality, and it requires focus, and it requires also, as Minister has mentioned, the support of council. So if that takes place, we can continue to recognize the work that has been done by Ethekwini. And so therefore, when we looked at what the MEC has mentioned, we know that Ethekwini led in phase 1 of the EPWP. They led in phase 2 of EPWP. However, the decline has come through in terms of phase 3, and we've seen it in phase 4, and now we're at an ultimate low in phase 5. So we see it as an ability for us to work together with the municipality, recognizing that the branch of EPWP is a coordinating branch, and this branch provides support, and we have been doing that. We will continue to provide them with the support, particularly on issues that we have seen coming forth. Data quality has been a concern. We've seen underreporting. We've also seen challenges in terms of communication and coordination. And so the team that is both at national, in terms of the National Department of Public Works, together with our provincial team, will hold hands with Ethekwini. The question is, what do we want to see? We want to see council support. We know that as the EPWP, this has been something that we've always emphasized consistently. And so when things go wrong, it is important that council also pronounces, as Minister has said, and we deal with consequence management. This is nobody's piggy bank. EPWP is meant to be there for the poor. Many of the officials that you find in the room today have dedicated their lives to ensure that we have a proper functioning program. And when we have done that, it is important that at the same time, one needs to be able to distinguish when things are wrong and when things must be addressed. And therefore, the EPWP reforms couldn't have come at a better time. It is important that we recognize that my team has seen this as a challenge. And because of that, we've actually produced now on a quarterly basis any public body, a report that says any public body that does similar practices to Ethekwini. And we as officials will continue to engage with the accounting officers, because on a quarterly basis, the accounting officer is responsible for the signing off of the data we produce. And as Minister has mentioned, we provide validations. So we work together with the Department of Home Affairs, the Department of Public Service and Administration, so that the data we do put out through our quarterly reports is indeed data that has passed certain quality checks. And the report that I've spoken about now is the report of the rejected data. But we cannot have a situation whereby we just put it in a separate file and say that there is just data that didn't pass. It is important for us to be able to engage, as mentioned, with the accounting officers, and when we do not get the necessary collaboration with the fellow colleagues, then we have to elevate it to our political principles to ask that indeed that this matter be addressed and the necessary systems and players within the system be called in. So we are very happy that well, not happy, but we recognize that the Auditor General has engaged us as a partner in relation to this, as part of the ecosystem. And so we will be engaging with regard to the incentive grant, because that is the tool that we have available as the branch. We will, if need be, engage the National Treasury in relation to this particular allocation that gets given to the Metro. And so we want Ethekwini to address the audit challenges. We want them to improve on their coordination. We want all of the sectors to continue and to start being revived within the Metro, which means it's the infrastructure, the social and the environment and culture sector, that work opportunities are created, that indeed they take the technical support offered by ourselves and the province. The province and the National Department of Public Works continues to work well together. We will work well with Ethekwini to ensure that we give them the technical support, because at the end of the day, they need to utilize the budgets that they've been given, whether it be the USDG budgets or any other own funding, and they need to apply the EPWP labor-intensive guidelines so that we have more work opportunities. So we will continue to help them to institutionalize and to improve on the institutionalization, and at the same time help them in relation to the provision of controls. Because indeed it is controls that have been missing here, systems that have been missing here, processes that have been missing here. And so it is very important that they continue to work with us, but also recognize that this is an opportunity for them to rebuild and rebuild better, so that collectively we can hold this program up high and ensure that the objectives of the program is achieved. Thank you.
Super. Thanks so much, DG, for that contribution. Colleagues, we're now going to open the floor for questions and answers. I just want to give a reminder that we're not doing one-on-ones, so ask your questions now. We're going to do one round and then another one after. Let's start it. There's two of my colleagues that got mic with them. You can just put up your hand and they'll bring it to you. You can start with it. Just your name and media house.
Good afternoon, I'm Desan Tathia from PNCA. I suppose the first question could be to the MEC or the Minister. It's more to get the context on how broad the issue is. So I suppose what I'm asking is, when we're looking at the Ethekwini issue and we're talking about payments that shouldn't have been made and ghost beneficiaries and those types of things, in relation to the entire program, how big is that problem? So, I mean, if we're talking about ghost beneficiaries, it could be 5, but they're always at 100. I just want to get a sense of, in relation to the broader project, how big it is, and also how much may have been defrauded from the municipality during the period that you are talking about, or the period that was reviewed. I heard you mention the 2021-2022 cycle. Is that kind of what this is contained to, or is it broader than that? Yeah, so I just want to get an idea of essentially how much we've lost during that period. The other thing is around I heard you, Minister, talk about the council resolution that must be passed within 30 days. And on the back of that, there should also be something that should be spoken about criminal charges and what type of disciplinary action would be taken. But also imagine that some of these officials that would have been involved would have left. And in terms of criminal charges, does it have to wait for a council resolution, or can you or anyone in your department not simply just go to a police station because you know that there was some kind of fraud that was committed? So what stops you from opening those cases if needs be? I'm almost done, but the other issues around the issue of oversight. So I know that you said that some of these things will be strengthened both at a provincial and at a national level, but then there should also be some concern around the existing mechanisms that are here if it took that probe by the Auditor General to get to a point where we realize, oh, some stuff is happening down in Ethekwini, and that's a problem. And then I think following on that would be, how big is the problem nationally? We're talking about Ethekwini here, you mentioned I think Mpumalanga as well, but just generally speaking, is the system in its current form that flawed, and how much money are we losing? Thank you.
Cool. Next question. We have.
Take it back, huh? Thank you. My name is Simon Lenwat. I work for the Mail and Guardian. Just two questions really to the Minister. I'm just looking at the trickle-down effect of this announcement. What then happens to the employees that are already in the system currently? Will they be sort of sacked? What happens to them, the people who are already in the system currently? The second one, MEC Mayor, you spoke of the EPWP jobs being in exchange for sex. Has there been sort of charges opened against certain people, and how severe or how wide is the problem? Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Busiso Mlamba from Umtala TV. My question is the department willing to take the responsibility for failing to do the oversight if this thing has been continuing from 2021 and is still happening now? Thank you.
Cool. I think that's enough for the first round. Minister, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Desan, for your questions. If you read the Auditor General's letter to us, she says that effectively it's difficult to quantify the loss because we can't get the correct information. So, and that's why part of the resolution that we specifically say is that that information must be correct so that the loss can be quantified. Because then we are just, we don't know actually. And that is part of the problem that we have. Let me say this about existing mechanisms of oversight, criminal charges, etc. One of the things that I have found with EPWP is that, so we effectively facilitate the grant to the beneficiary, which is the municipality, and that's where the contestation starts between us and the municipality. So DDG Abrahams would have said earlier that the communication between us and Ethekwini has significantly broken down because they don't supply information. They have a very limited EPWP office in the municipality. So the checks and balances aren't there. Now, I take absolutely the point that if we aren't getting that information, then there should be flags raised earlier. And that's something that MEC Mayor was talking to, and is fundamentally at the heart of our reform program and project, particularly the digitization of the recruitment process and payment process. So we take out human hands and human opportunity for abuse. So I think that we've looked at what hasn't worked and where there are shortcomings and what opens the door for this type of abuse. These abuses only take place because those doors are open. Again, you know, we are saying to the council that the council as the executive authority of the municipality has to put in place a council-sanctioned program that is going to determine which officials are responsible or were responsible, who didn't do their job, why did people not comply with the Auditor General's request dating back to 2021. We legislatively don't have that power. And again, that speaks to the mismatch of providing the grant, but having very little say in the direction in which it moves. Sandile, let me say this. As I said, the decision that we've taken today is not an easy decision. I don't sleep well at night when I take a decision like this. But we also equally cannot allow the abuse of public funds and the abuse of EPWP participants to continue unchecked. That's why we have specifically said we are giving the municipality 30 days. They don't need to wait 30 days for that council resolution. They could do it tomorrow. They could do it next week. They could do it before then. But this will affect their their grant for the 2026-2027 financial year. So it's not stopping immediately. It will stop in the new financial year if action is not taking place. So we are saying we are giving them the tools. We are pointing them in the direction. We are saying that this is now in your hands to resolve. And I would hope that the Ethekwini municipality and the political leadership and the councillors would say, we have a credibility problem in this program. The Minister has directed us how we should respond. We as the council will convene virtually, in person, however they choose to do so, and that they will adopt an action plan that will get to the bottom of this and address the issues that the Auditor General has been raising since 2021. So we hope that we won't have to get there, but lawfully I cannot allow a grant to be dispersed when we know that the conditions of the grant are not being met. So we are imploring them to deal with that. In terms of how broad this problem is, obviously we only act, Jason, on when the issues become apparent to us. Again, it's the wrong way around. We should be proactively, but we don't have that data because we're reliant on the beneficiaries to communicate and provide that data. So if they don't, so you can see the incentive not to. So let me put it that way. So there's almost a perverse incentive not to give us that information if our response is to suspend the grant. You recall in Machabeng, there was issues around how the grant was being there. We suspended it. Our team quickly went there, assessed, and said actually there is that the issue around the mayor's office, that is a parallel process, but no EPWP grant funding is being used. We immediately reinstated it. We then found in Mpumalanga that a MMC was abusing the EPWP grant to pay their staff, etc. We've taken strong action there. So, I mean, I think that what we also can take as a case in point, when I've looked at municipalities where there's not a single complaint, not a single issue, it's because they have strong systems in place. And I think we've seen in the city of Cape Town, they're really, really good with how the grant is done. There's a couple of others, but I'm convinced that when we launch the reform agenda for EPWP, which will be in a couple of weeks' time, people will be able to see the logic behind what we're doing, and also saying that EPWP cannot just be a program that pays people a few rand to pick up litter and cut grass. I don't accept that being a dignified existence. Someone once told me that they've been in EPWP for 10 years, and they were proud of that but I wasn't. I wasn't proud for someone to be paid the pittance that they are and live in an existence of cutting grass. We want to have a program that puts people onto a permanent pathway to structured, dignified employment. If you want to give people dignity, get them into a real into a proper paying job. That's how we restore dignity to communities across our country. Martin? Sorry,
Thank you so much. Thank you, Minister. Sandile, so the challenge of this is like with any sexual assault or rape case, that people are willing to tell us this confidentially, but getting people to open criminal charges, go to a police station is very, very difficult. Because let's be honest, the most desperate and the poor are being exploited. They then got these jobs and they're very scared of losing these jobs, losing what income they have, or being victimized by the people in their community. So unfortunately, while we know for a fact that sexual jobs exist, and people do report it to us, it's very difficult for us to take any actions. But let me also be very clear. Sexual jobs is a form of sexual abuse, and it's a form of rape, and it needs the fullest criminal charges to be laid, and people like that should end up in orange uniforms and be a guest of the government in Westwall Prison or others. Let me also just add to what Minister has said, that this is not about taking away employment from 8,000 people in Ethekwini. It's about making sure 18,000 people can get EPWP opportunities. And if there's corruption, mismanagement, then that's not what's happening. So I must add to that this is why the digitalization and modernization of this program is so important, because for us as a department, we just do not have the capacity to personally verify 155,000 employees across 54 municipalities and all provincial departments. So there is a challenge for us that it's very difficult for us to verify, but with the modernization and the digitalization of this program, I think a lot of these problems will be solved and we can move forward. As I say, with any crisis, it's about how you learn from it and how do you improve on it moving forward. And I think that's the most important thing going forward here. Thank you, Minister.
Yes, I thought that was a important question. Did we fail to do our oversight? I think you recognize that I did say that an ecosystem is important. And so for us as coordinators, it's important that we clearly spell out the various responsibilities. One of the important things we do is we do have protocols that are signed, particularly the province leads on the protocols that clearly specifies the roles of the various leaders, HODs, the city manager, etc. And then we also have to ensure that the structures are properly functioning. One of the structures we have as the Department of Public Works is a data quality structure. And that for us is a very critical one in terms of our oversight. where we are very clear on those that have either done things that have not complied in terms of the various EPWP legislation, whether it be the ministerial determination or even the incentive grant. But as MEC Mayor mentions, there is a balance. At the end of the day, one of the important roles is to recognize that we need more jobs. So if we're going to be spending a lot of our time on the other end of the spectrum, which is running after people that was not supposed to do things that they're not supposed to do with public funds, instead of actually thinking about innovative ways to create further opportunities for the poor, to look for ways in which we increase the budget to be able to be spent on public employment programs. So there has to be that particular balance. And so therefore, yes, we are then focused on the biometric aspects and any other solutions that can help us to bring greater transparency and efficiency into the system. But at the same time, we need to balance, you know, every rand that I spend, where do we put it? And that is the question. And I think measures like this do help because as an official, it's not only about us producing the reports, it's actually about saying, well, if nothing's been done about it, these types of sessions are required so that we can get quicker responses. Thank you.
Cool, thanks so much. Second round of questions. You can put up your hand and stop there at the back.
Hi, so you're somebody from News 24. So I have two questions, one for the Minister and one for the DG. DG, as of 2024, the total annual expenditure for the EPWP at Ethekwini was at 300 million. We just want to know where that is now for each year since 2024. And for the Minister, you previously complained that the EPWP was used to boost political campaigns, and that during the by-elections, maybe some people would be given jobs. We just want to know if that's something that continues to take place, and if the departments address that.
Cool, thanks so much. I just want to check, is there any hands this side? I can't see at the back there. None. Okay, there we go.
Just in the case of KZN, it's Ethekwini municipality which is problematic. Has there been any municipality which has been flagged in KZN specifically in terms of cost employees? Thank you.
Colleagues, so double, I see a hand over there.
Yes. Hi, it's Maladministration from SABC. I just wanted to check or to find out, since you said that you would be, okay, my question is, will you be starting investigations? Because I do know for a fact that this problem is not only isolated to Ethekwini. I know a couple of municipalities around KZN that do a similar thing. Will you be instituting investigations, or will you still be waiting for a report from the Auditor General?
So I just want to double check if we've got any other hands going, gone. That means we've also done for question and answers today. Minister, to you.
Thank you. So Yeso, you've been following us across the country, eh? You must be tired. Let me say that during our roadshow across the country called the EPWP Listening Tour, we heard repeatedly, and the MEC has said it as well, that communities complain about how the EPWP program is used specifically by ward councillors because they are the people who compile these lists to advance patronage and political opportunity. Now, our view is that one of the big problems with EPWP is that it rests at the ward councillor's door. And we have heard stories of how membership cards have to be produced, how money has to be produced, or how, even worse is, opportunities are pooled so that people get paid 10, 20,000 rand. So those are being taken away from a whole group of people and only being allocated to a single person. We are very, very clear that we have to take away the human hand in this. And that's where the opportunity for abuse is. And that's why we are dead set on a digital interface between applicants and the department or the province, municipality, whatever that may be. Because then you can actually verify through technology the existence of the individual, the ID number of the individual is a South African citizen, so on and so forth. And I guess that's going to make me pretty unpopular in local government, but you know, my focus is on the people who need this program, who look to this program to advance their daily reality. So we're okay with that unpopularity because we must eliminate all opportunity for abuse in the system. Let me say with regards to, I will ask Ms. Abrahams to deal with any other flags that are raised around KZN municipalities. But the truth of the matter is, as I said earlier, is sometimes we only find out about these issues when they are raised through the AG, when it's raised through a tip-off, because that interface and interaction and information that should be supplied to us, sometimes people are very unwilling to provide that to us. And so sometimes it makes it very hard to make a judgment call on where the municipality is. You know, in some places, some municipalities perform so well, we actually give them more money. So there's actually an incentive. If you perform well and if you stick to the grants, you can actually get more. If you don't perform well and if you don't give us that information and if you don't adhere to the conditions of the grant, you know, you leave us with no choice. And let me just repeat this again, that the decision that we take on a matter like this is the decision of last resort. I mean, this issue has gone on for 4 years. I mean, I think that that's pretty lenient. Maybe it's too lenient, that it's gone on for 4 years and there's still been no change. In fact, as the MEC points out, it's got worse. So, you know, we also have to guard the public purse, and we have to guard those people that interact with the program. We have always said as well, if people bring us credible information, we will institute investigations, and we have shown that going forward. MEC, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm covered. Thank you,
Ms. Abraham.
Yes, there was a question with regard to the budget. Indeed, as mentioned, we do put out published information, so you can go and have a look. Our published information is that they 300 budget, but expenditure to date was 89 million, keeping in mind that this is interim data and that municipalities, particularly in our Q4, would be extremely busy because that would be the peak of when they have certain projects. And so a lot of the efforts that have gone in, and I'm seeing here our specific report that said there's been extensive engagements on the 12th, 16th, 9th of March, 13th of March, to be able to help the Metro to ensure that the data of participants is uploaded on the EPWP reporting system. So 89 million. In relation to how deep the problem is, it's exactly what Minister says. I think at the same time, one needs to be able to afford the public body also the right of reply. So we do validation, and there are KZN public bodies, and I do have a report in front of me. But what we do as a public body, as the coordinator, is I first have to write to the public body. What we see is the data. I can already tell you there is not, if in KZN there wouldn't be huge anomalies. It would be 1 or 2 or 3 participants. And then you would say to yourself, but is that a finger challenge that we are dealing with? And obviously my team would then say, to resolve this particular issue, I need to get attendance registers, we need to see payment registers, all of those types of issues. So there is a progressive elevation in relation to it, and I don't think it would be fair on any public body to name and shame at this point, because we do have mechanisms to write to them before we publish our data, and even after the process. We have the Data Quality Forum, and after that, if you still don't listen, I actually write a letter through my Director General then to the accounting officer to ask that the matter be addressed. Because as mentioned, the accounting officer signs the data off. And so we need to make sure that there's no miscommunication and that it's not officials that have the information at their level, but that indeed by the time we elevate the matter, that we then give the accounting officer the ability to intervene within his or her own department or municipality.
But Minister, you have also referred a lot to the local councillors. Don't you think that we're in the elective year, and this could also be seen as a decampaigning of some municipalities that have the majority of certain parties?
Is your suggestion that I should do nothing?
No,
then?
no,
because the flip side to what your question is that because in an election we should do nothing. And that would be completely unlawful for me to do that. As I said, this is not something that happened this year. This is something that's been going on for 4 years. That the municipality has not done what it should is begs a lot of questions as to why that is. I didn't write the Auditor General's letter. They gave that to me. I could have sat on my hands, put it in a file and kept it away and said, well, we won't do anything about it. And then you would have been the first person to say to me, Minister, you haven't done your job. So I cannot do my job on the basis of electoral cycles. I cannot do my job on the basis of which party is in charge where. I have to act in the best interests of South Africans. That is my first and only priority.